Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. And we have a great group of folks that have joined us, to include, of course, Representative Tharinger and Bruce Beckett, who has in-depth knowledge on the unemployment state program. And we have David Giuliani. And I see that we also have Brian Bonlander, who is works at the state level for a lot of different clients, but also used to be the Director of Commerce, the Department of Commerce. So, Bruce, do you want to begin, and then we'll have Steve take it from there, kind of recap what recently came out this week?
Sure. I'm not quite sure exactly how to go about this, so I will maybe set the question or the framework, and then turn it over to Representative Tharinger, who's probably going to have to try to figure out how to deal with all this. Over the past year, as a result of the COVID-related unemployment, there has been an extraordinary amount of benefits paid out of Washington's Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund, and rightfully so, to help the people that have been impacted by the pandemic. The UI Trust Fund is funded entirely by taxes on employers. Some local governments reimburse for their costs fully, but nonetheless, it's paid entirely by employers based on a two-pronged tax system. Based on the experience that you've used the system over 4 years as an employer, and then a socialized rate of taxes. The trust fund was actually beginning to stabilize over the last 6 to 8 weeks, and maybe would have averted the need to raise an extraordinary amount of money by raising employer taxes until the latest round of closures was announced by the governor. So right now, all projections show that it will go to an insolvent stage sometime early next year. So there's an awful lot of activity underway by Representative Tharinger and his colleagues and task forces to figure out how to avert a two-pronged sort of outcome. One, to make sure that there's dollars available to support those that are laid off during this period of time, and two, see if you can avert the need to raise extraordinary amounts of taxes on employers to, if you will, replenish the trust fund. Right now, using the projections from ESD, most employers would see somewhere between 300 to 500% increase in their unemployment insurance taxes next year in order to replenish the fund. So there's various ideas floating around, including taking a federal loan, advocating that there be no interest on those loans, using a federal line of credit, mixing around the tax system a little bit, and those sorts of things. Additionally, the Commissioner of Employment Security has put together quite a good package, which was part of that materials, Colleen, of their request of Congress to help maybe provide aid to this area of support as well, when they come back and address the next round of CARES funding or relief funding. So with that, Colleen, I'll turn it over to Representative Tharinger. Is that sort of what you were asking for from me?
Absolutely. That was a beautiful recap.
Yeah, and there may be either David Giuliani or Brian, or I'm not an expert on this area. I will just say that just in general, what we try to do in the legislature is, specialize by committee, right? So there has been a letter, the chair and ranking member and a vice chair and assistant ranking member of labor in both the House and the Senate have put together a letter that they sent to the state delegation, sort of outlining the different programs. One of the things is the CARES Act added a number of different programs. And that interface between benefits from the feds, benefits from the state, all of it ran through the ESD department at the state. And so they were standing up new sort of systems to be able to get that out. Well, those different reimbursements are changing and closing down at different times. So that's at a multi-layer of complication. And there's another challenge that's going on as some of those programs have closed down. By federal law, ESD has had to send out letters telling folks that, there's some discrepancy. If they did not report back to ESD that on a weekly basis, and that was a federal mandate, they were not going to get their benefits, or they were in fact triggered by the software to actually be reimbursed. So we've had a lot of constituents that are quite frankly freaking out because they're getting these notices that say they owe, some of the money that they'd already gotten, money that they'd already spent. And so what this letter does from the two labor committees in the House and Senate is to the delegation, the federal delegation, to provide some relief to these challenges that are going on right now.
Yeah.
That's one part of it. The other part of it is what Bruce spoke to, is trying to get some federal assistance to help sort of stabilize the unemployment system, the funding in the unemployment system, so that the rates that we talked about last week, that they're 0.25, and I think they're scheduled to go up to 1.25, can be flattened and not the need. There is a trigger when the rates get below 7%. So the ability to pay out over, and Bruce, you may know this number,
Yeah,
but I think
it's
it's 7 months, I think it is, right?
7 months of benefits need to be in the trust fund, or else it triggers a solvency tax. Yeah, you're
Right.
absolutely right.
And that's kind of where we are right now. I guess the bad news is probably the strongest and easiest pathway here is to get some assistance from DC on this, but as we know, DC is not the most functional place right now, or ever probably. So that's one of the challenges. And I guess the good news, as far as I know, folks are really concerned about how engaged the legislature is on these issues and whether we should have a special session. I think this letter and the effort that's going on in a very bipartisan way by both chambers to direct this effort at the federal level is probably the best pathway, because it's more targeted, it's got bipartisan support, and it's really the people in the know. If we were to throw this out into the whole legislative process, it would slow it down, and I don't think it would be as effective. Not to say that we're assured of it being effective right now, but I think the fact that all 4 caucuses are supporting this letter and trying to get our delegation to do something to help manage some of these issues is unprecedented issues, quite frankly, is probably a pretty good pathway right now.
Yeah, Representative Tharinger, I agree with you. Commissioner Levine has convened a task force of people that have been involved with this for a long time to try to come up with ideas to bring to all of you. And I think the governor's announcement of the relief package the other day, he made comment to the effect that there needs to be some solution to this looming problem. So I agree with you. There's a lot of minds thinking about this right now.
And on this issue, and my staff, my inbox has really been hammered about this notification piece and how people are then getting letters that are talking about, putting a lien or putting a claim on their wages. I think there's 37 states that have written directors like Levine that have sent a letter to the federal government to stop that policy so that the state DSDs do not have to notify these employees about this certification. And then, quite frankly, it's threatening. It just adds more, quite frankly, it adds more trauma to what's a very traumatic situation. So that's sort of the game plan, is to, there's just such a nexus between the federal programs and the state programs to try and get the feds to back off and, give us some time to adjust to these new, to some programs shutting down, and hopefully the need to continue some of the programs after December 31st. A lot of folks know that those programs are going to go away because of inaction in DC. And I don't know if there's other people on the call that maybe have a little more background, a little more information on it. But I would suggest, Colleen, I think that package you set out. So Susie Levine, the director of ESD, who's also the incoming chair of the national organization, sends to the legislature and to some folks who are on that mailing list kind of a weekly update. And in that weekly update, she had these 3 letters, one from the Association of Workforce Agencies, one was the letter from the labor committees in our legislature, and then there's another one that sort of is defined, just has some lists of some of the challenges and how the programs are working. But there is a new sort of alphabet soup of these programs that came through the CARES Act that is confusing for the administrators and very confusing for the individuals that got the money.
I guess this is Brian Baumlander. I would just add that based on my conversations with folks in Senator Murray's office and what I'm hearing from Derek Kilmer's office is their expectation is, in the context of economic stimulus and so forth, is that they expect a lame duck COVID-related bill that probably won't, but possibly will have some infrastructure stuff attached to it, but that's likely infrastructure would be done later during the new Congress, and that would be, though, the vehicle during the lame duck to try to iron these things out. And I don't know what the state of play of those conversations are. I actually probably have to jump off the phone at 8:30. I'll be talking to somebody in Adam Smith's office, and I'll ask them to see if they're hearing anything about this, to see if I can get back on here and provide an update.
Great, thanks very much.
I will say just one other thing is we're trying, when you look at probably the amount of, so these certification letters and these sort of updates to make sure that people are legitimate recipients of the dollars, is causing a huge challenge to the administrative systems, the software, and all that. And we're arguing at the legislative level to just, not spend that much time chasing down at this point with all the paperwork and all the folks that are legitimate recipients, to just kind of a moratorium on trying to run down the people that are fraudulently using the system, and then get through the crisis and then look back and find out where the problems were. We're just assuming that that's not that much money, and the juice isn't really worth the squeeze for all the concern that it's raising among the vast majority of people who are legitimate recipients of these dollars.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Representative Tharinger. Does anybody want to add anything to that? If not, David Giuliani, thank you for joining us this morning, and you had some new info you wanted to share with everyone.
Yes, I'm calling in with good news about money. The state is opening a new program that's intended to help businesses that have been adversely affected by the governor's latest order. And I'm reporting to you from a committee that I'm on. It's a task force that the governor formed called Safe Work and Economic Recovery. And it's a verbal report because the program specifics are still being ironed out. It's a grant program using state money. Total amount is $50 million, and it'll be applied to a number of NICS codes that's still being tuned, but these are going to include restaurants, fitness centers, bowling alleys, music and performance venues, wedding venues, possibly others. It'll be available to both profit and nonprofit companies, and the funds are going to be prioritized based upon needs, including prior support that's been received either federally, state, or city, case of Seattle, for example. Also with sensitivity to location and social equity. There's a concern about a prior version of this program where most of the money got soaked up by King County. So I'm glad we're aware of that. I don't live in King County anymore. I'm in Friday Harbor. It also includes, as part of the $50 million, $2 million dedicated to what we have called the Resiliency Network. This is something that our task force has been recommending that the governor implement. And it's those agencies outside of the public sector that are involved in helping entrepreneurs and business owners make sense out of all this chaos. And that includes the WSU Outreach Network as a possible distribution for these funds. The schedule for this is that there will be a portal opened up on the Department of Commerce website, I believe on Monday. So start paying attention to it then. There'll be an open window for about 1 week. So when the applications are received isn't significant as long as they're received before the end of the window, which might shut. Hopefully it's going to be shut on a schedule. And then the applications are going to be processed as one batch and prioritized accordingly. And they'll open it up again if there's, on the off chance that they have more money left, which is pretty remote in my view. The money's to be released by the end of the year. And the second topic I'll just mention is that there's active planning for how to distribute the magical vaccine when it finally arrives, but who knows when and who knows how much Washington State's going to receive. But it's good to see that we're being able to do some planning on these things. Should I take any questions, Colleen?
Certainly. And I want to add that this weekend, and so this may have changed since then, I received a call from Commerce asking if Clallam EDC as an ADO would be willing to distribute funds for not just from that program, from not just Clallam County, but for multiple counties. And talked to the staff and we all agreed that we would do that. So what I understand is there would be one portal, which could be Wazoo Extension that reviews that, or it could be the National Development Council. And then Commerce will contract with 5 or 6 different EDCs around the state to do the contracts and distribute the funds to those that have been selected within our regions. And Commerce has asked us, and we've started with that process, to work with the chambers and the cities in each of our counties to look at a full list of those types of businesses like restaurants, bars, wedding venues, etc., fitness centers, and and because we know what businesses have received local money, and I've distributed all the Working Washington funds and many times more in funding from the county level. So and I have a comprehensive list of that. So based on that information, I'm working with each of the counties or each of the cities and chambers to come up with a list. And so what we're also doing is calling them and saying, how are you doing? And is this something you think you can get through, or is this something where you think you may go out of business unless you received about $20,000? And so based on that input, we will create that list and send it to the entity that will be reviewing all the applications. I am really glad, David, you're saying that it'd only be open for 1 week, because I was told it would be 2 weeks. And so I was looking at, okay, the middle of December, and then I'm going to have 2 weeks to process. Once they give me the list for all these counties, I'm going to have, 2 weeks to process and write contracts for every single one of these companies, get them to sign it, and then cut checks. Oh, actually, I don't get to cut checks. The process is I have to submit all the list of information to Commerce. They then send me money, and then I cut checks. So 2 weeks to do that for potentially hundreds and hundreds of businesses over Christmas time would not be ideal.
Right. And you get to do this because you're one of the relatively few EDC commissioners that the state has chosen to organize this group. So they took the best, and this is what you get for being so functional. I've neglected to mention that there's a $20,000 maximum on the grant. There was a question in the chat about, is it taxable? Well, that would be a federal taxation issue, and you would need to check with your accountant, but it looks like regular income to me.
Mm-hmm.
But regular income is better than no income.
That's right. And I do believe all the others have been taxable.
Yeah.
So I don't know why this would not be.
Right. Any other questions? Okay.
Great. Thank you very much, David. Have you heard anything about the loans as well? And one other thing, I thought it was 70 million, not 50 million. Have they dropped it now to 50 for this?
Well, they have 50 secured, and there's a possibility they're going to increase it to 70 or 100.
Okay.
The legislature is quite supportive of this on a bipartisan basis. It's really nice to see how well our state seems to be functioning by comparison to you know what.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, thank you very much, David, for joining us and giving us that report. It's great to know somebody that's on the Safe Start and Economic Recovery Committee. They can give us some of these updates, and a person that we can feed what we're seeing and hearing to, so that can be shared through that conduit.
Yes, please do that. And Colleen can supply my email address, and please do send comments, suggestions, dedications, special requests.
All right. Thanks very much, David.
I'll sign off now. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. All right. So Representative Tharinger, have you heard anything more about that, or Bruce?
No, that's pretty much what I've heard. But I heard, as you did, that the pot is bigger. That originally it was 50, and now they've added about 130 to it, I think, or 120 to it. And Commerce is, I think, if you go to the Commerce site, they say, as we just heard, they're trying to figure out how to structure it and how the mechanics will work of it. But that sounds like that's coming probably the first of next week.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very short timeline, but I think what's encouraging is it does seem like it's going to target those hospitality or human service industries and music venues and things that have been really hard hit and have not been able to access the support previously, or it was a challenge for them. So I think that's really good news. It's not a ton of money, but it's, every little bit helps.
Mm-hmm. I have
Colleen, I was on the phone over the weekend. I guess in the spirit of disclosure, I'm trying to help out the fitness sector, and everything that David reported, except for the fact that it's only open 1 week, is consistent with what Commerce was trying to put together, beginning over the weekend, as a program to assist these businesses that are impacted by the most recent, shutdown. So I hadn't heard it was only 1 week, but that's probably good news.
Mhm. Since everything has to go out by the end of December, yeah, I know how long it takes to get some businesses are great at getting those contracts back, and then others takes, 4 or 5 phone calls and emails to get them to respond. I do have a meeting today scheduled with Commerce, all the ADOs across the EDCs essentially across the state do. And they're going to give us some updated information on this. And they did produce an FAQ for EDCs and that came out yesterday on the process. And I was just looking for that, see if there was anything that might be of value to this group. Yeah, there will be a Zoom meeting, and there were some questions about whether Working Washington 2 awardees would receive any funding, and Commerce has said they haven't made a final decision regarding posting those recipients. If they get posted, it'll probably be in the second week of December. The information isn't due from all of the EDCs till November 30th, and then it'll take a little time for the staff to disseminate if they do release the names and the amounts. And let's see. So the information that I received about the industry sectors are that it's restaurant, bars, gyms, music venues, well, they say etc. And it'll be using specific NAICS codes. The ADOs will be compiling their list with only these type of organizations whom they have applications for who were not awarded less than $10,000. They can also let those in these categories of NAICS codes within their counties know this funding will become available so they can apply for it when it does. As for other businesses, please just direct them to the Commerce website, Red Banner Business tab, to continue to check for updates and support of businesses that are not in those NAICS codes. So that's the email that I received from Commerce yesterday. So do we have any questions here or comments from folks? You can unmute yourself if you do. I see that Brad, you have a question? It's well, if Brad doesn't want to ask it, he wrote.
Here we go.
Okay, great.
Sorry. So is there ability to have like a local GoFundMe for locals helping locals? I know it's real complicated to do that, but we still get out on date night, my wife and I, and support local restaurants. But there's so many people out there that we don't know about and we don't see. And, we don't have overabundant of funds, but we do have fun money. We could support people. And if I'm giving 10 and Rick is giving 10 and Kay is giving 12, pretty soon that person is making their rent or food or eat.
Well, we have gone with the approach of not necessarily doing a GoFundMe page, though that's always an option for individual business owners, but rather just trying to encourage people to purchase from our small business owners, not necessarily the Amazon and Costco's behemoths that are very convenient, but rather work with our local community business owners. And it's really tough because Amazon's so easy and you aren't exposing yourself to a potential virus. And so but we're trying certainly, and I understand a lot of people's hesitancy in that regard.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. I see we've got,
Colleen,
yes.
Colleen, this is Colleen. I was hopped on a little late. I'm wondering about an update on Blackball Ferry.
Sure, I think we have someone from Blackball on right now. I know we've got a call scheduled, something Bruce was putting together. I don't.
Oh, yeah, it's Rylan Burles here from Victoria. So
Hi,
thank
Ryan.
you for that, Colleen. The update is we've got a grant due to the work that Colleen and the county initiated for $500,000. We're so appreciative of that. We are working with Main Street and First Federal to get a loan. We are here for the long haul. We realize that really the border will be not probably open till a vaccine is deployed. Certainly Canada and our province has said that unless there's herd immunity and a vaccine to 60% of the population, the border won't open. We also want more clarity on what that will take and when will the deployment occur and all those things. They haven't been very open in regard to telling us what it takes to see where that opening is. So sadly, I think early spring if we're lucky, but right now we don't know. But we certainly are here for the future, and we can't say enough about the support that the county and the whole community has given us.
Thanks very much, Ryan. Really appreciate that update. Yeah, I know the city of Port Angeles too has been doing waivers for their utility expenses. The port is, we officially have deferred rent, but we're waiting and we're going, I believe it's agreed. John, why don't you speak to that as an employee of the port instead of me as one commissioner? I don't want to misspeak.
The Port Commission is very involved with Blackball. Obviously, we're their tenant here in Port Angeles, and we value them not only as one of our tenants, but they mean a lot to our entire community, as everyone here knows. So for the time being, as their landlord, we've deferred all rental payments. And I just got a call from Ryan Mullane here a couple of days ago, kind of panicked, saying, "Well, gee, we haven't heard from you in a while." I said, "That's fine. You know, I'm not knocking on your door asking for anything right now." So, you know, deferred is into the near future, and then I expect at some point our elected commissioners will have a discussion about potentially even forgiving some of the rent. So, not collecting anything for now, and our commission has indicated that they just kind of like to see how everything else plays out, and then see how we can best fill the hole in the end. So that's our organizational plan.
Thanks,
Yeah,
John.
thank you for bringing that up, Colleen. I want to yes, and thank you, John, for that update.
Certainly. So I know we have Nathan and Allison on the line. Do you guys want to provide any sort of update from the city perspective?
I'd be happy to provide a quick update. We very much support Blackball. Blackball has been identified as a legislative priority for us moving forward. In addition to that, as you mentioned, the utility waivers that we've had have been hopefully some value to Blackball. We recognize that probably de minimis at the end of the day compared to the overall need, but we want to do everything that we can. And we too, in every opportunity we get, we talk with our legislature about supporting Blackball. We also want to express just to Ryan, if no one else, that as a reminder, any Blackball employee that lives within the city of Port Angeles would be eligible for utility rental relief as well as mortgage assistance. And we just want to help out in any way we can.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. Thank you for making me aware of that regarding our individual employees. I wasn't aware of that. I'm not sure if Ryan Mullane was, but we'll follow up. Thank you.
Thanks. Ryan, one question I had about the Main Street program with Secretary Mnuchin pulling back the funds from the Federal Reserve, since it's a U.S. Treasury program, the Main Street Loan Program, does that affect that loan, or had you already finalized it?
I'm not aware of that either, sadly, but to my knowledge, no, we're in the process of getting it finalized, so I haven't heard. It should be within a week or two, but our application is on its way, so I believe we're okay.
So I see another Brian Garrett. Do you want to ask your question?
Sure. It was earlier in the year, it was reported of a fraud loss at the ESD. Amounts varied. I guess the press settled on $650 million. But we're talking about a shortage in the fund and having to make it up. But I was just wondering if the small businesses are going to be looked to making up a loss, which was basically created by someone within the department. And, you know, all these funds went to people, nefarious individuals outside the country. So.
The last I heard was it was $330 million that was lost. They were able to stop payments, or there was an attempt of up to $650 million is the story I was told, but either Representative Tharinger or Bruce, do you have an answer for his question / comment?
Yeah, I don't know definitively. I think you're right, Colleen, that it was 650. They recovered 350. So I think the outstanding, you know, delta is about 300 million. But I don't know whether that's part of the mix for the, you know, triggering the balance in the fund that triggers the rates. I don't have a definitive answer on that.
Yeah, they did, at least they're reporting they recovered about 350 million. You know, you're right, Colleen and Representative Tharinger. And right now it's just calculated as, you know, if you will, an extraction from the UI trust fund and part of the overall, you know, piece of the puzzle that needs to be filled beginning in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, my concern is that just seems like an unfair burden already placed on the small businesses, you know, between everything else. It's just my thought that should be set aside and say, we'll have to work on that as a separate issue.
Well, yeah, the trust fund is a huge issue, obviously, for the entire state, and I think the legislature will probably be taking that issue up, but it seems as though the solution probably lies within a federal act that I assume every state is dealing with this type of issue. And I know our state was not the only one that was attacked by the fraudsters. Switching topics here a little bit, our county with our chambers are working on an economic recovery strategy and plan and trying to leverage our most important assets to work with entities like our large maritime businesses and the forestry sector and the tourism sector, and then also with Pacific Northwest National Labs that have plans to expand their facility on the east side of the county, but are really focused on marine sciences and coastal research. And I'll have the director of the lab come and speak on a Coffee with Colleen soon to talk about the different areas of research they're doing and what businesses they're working with. Hopefully, and what our plan is to try to leverage their special permits that they have to actually extract ocean water and test different systems and equipment using that real ocean water to see how it interacts. And we'll try to use that as an example to expand our economy locally with higher wage paying positions. And also work with the maritime industry if there's something that they are looking at doing and in the water environment, and try to grow that sector of our economy that typically will definitely pay higher than a family wage. So we're in that process, and if folks want to be involved with that, Mark Abshire from the Port Angeles Chamber is leading our committee. And we've really engaged strongly with our chambers and the North Peninsula Builders Association and the port, of course, but also our cities and our county, trying to understand what we can leverage to try and work together to try to grow our economy here in Clallam County. But also we've partnered pretty well with Jefferson County, because there's so much interplay between the two counties. And so we're working in that regard as well. So does anybody else have anything they want to add? If not, we're a little early, but I'd love to give back some minutes to everybody's day because I know everyone is so busy. But are there any last minute things that people want to share or ask while we have some of these leaders and experts on the call with us?
Well, Colleen, just to kind of add to what you said, working on the marine sector, PNNL, the state has partnered with them in the Tri-Cities area. We've had 2 projects since I've been capital budget chair. The Tri-Cities is becoming, as folks may know, it has one of the highest concentrations of PhDs in the country per capita. And they've become a center of excellence around energy. The state put in about $6 million 4 years ago that helped partner with the Department of Energy for a $65 million project to do pure science on energy storage. And that was so successful in PNL's relationship with the Department of Energy. We put, this biennium, we put in $6 million to help them stand up a $68 million research center on transmission and storage. So the first phase of this was for sort of pure science around energy storage and just the sort of chemistry and physics around that. And this next phase is sort of the application of that for storage and transmission. And so it's a pretty exciting partnership that PNNL has with the Department of Energy, and a real benefit for the state to become a center, and the Tri-Cities to become a center of excellence around that important issue. As everyone knows, we as we move into a different energy-based economy, that transmission and storage is a big deal. So I guess my point is that developing this asset of marine research in the marine lab with PNNL and SQUIM could have some huge upsides.
Great, thanks, Representative Tharinger. And I'm sure there's an opportunity for interplay between the port's assets in Port Angeles or maybe it's the John Wayne Marina, but I think this could be larger than just the SQUIM area. And, working with Platypus as an example, how can some of the work they're doing be leveraged with the work that is happening at PNNL and to expand our economy and jobs. So we'll be exploring those ideas further, and I'll try to get some folks from the right sectors on a call so we can begin to talk about what we can do going forward. And again, we're trying to make it a very inclusive process. So if any of you have any interest, please let me know, and I'll be sure that you're included in those conversations.
Great.
Great. All right. If no one has anything else, I see one last chat here. Just a thanks. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and have an extra 13 minutes in your day. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Have a good holiday, everybody.
Yeah. Oh, and happy Thanksgiving.
Right.